Thanks. Hey, Eric, how are you doing?
Hi, Taavet. Great. So let's start with where you've been visible the most lately, your marketing campaign. Can you tell us about it?
So, the big problem we have is that people are really ignorant when it comes to the fees banks are charging them. Based on our research, people have a feeling that banks are not giving them a great deal, but they don't really know how much money they are paying for the services. So we kind of call these people blissfully ignorant. And when we were thinking about what to do with marketing, we figured we really need to come up with a message which cuts through that blissfully ignorant stuff.
There's an antenna.
Okay, cool. So we wanted to create something which people can't just ignore. Not another we're 5% cheaper, but something which will grab people's attention. So that was the kind of design brief, and the results that we have, I'm really happy with that. I think the creative is awesome, and the early results we see from it are very promising.
All right, great. Taavet, you were also the first employee at Skype before you went on to co-found TransferWise. Can you tell us what was it that you brought with you from Skype to TransferWise that made the company today?
Sure. So what I was also saying on stage previously, I think there are 3 lessons that I learned in Skype which will stick with me until the end of my life. So first being, you really need to focus on the users. So in Skype we had a motto at the early days called "Delight the user." Skype forgot about this in the past years, but in the beginning we were really thinking about what do the users need. We were listening to the feedback and basing lots of our decisions on that. The second one is team. You have to build the best team, because the best team will attract more people, more of the best, and so on. And your idea will change or pivot, but the team will stick with it. So you have to invest in getting the best team. And last one is you don't have to be in Silicon Valley to build a big company. You can build a world-changing company right here in Helsinki, in Tallinn, or in Timbuktu.
So what is it exactly that you have changed in currency transfers today? How have you made it more efficient?
So we've kind of we've looked at what's happened in other industries and implemented the same thing in banking services. On very broad terms, what's changed in most of the industries that have been disrupted by internet is that things have become cheaper, faster, and much more transparent. That's the very same we're doing for money transfer. We're doing it much faster. We're doing it for a much lower cost, typically 85% less than you would pay to a bank. And we're making things very transparent. We always make the exchange at the mid-market rate. We very clearly quote you the fees we're charging. When you compare this to a bank, it's a little bit like day and night.
And you recently raised another round, and you have an impressive group of investors on board, amongst them 2 PayPal co-founders. Can you talk a bit about what it has meant for you to have such impressive investors on board?
So we've always thought about fundraising kind of as a way of building our team. So when we did our seed round, we really thought about what's the kind of expertise we need, and then who are the best people in the world. So in our seed round, we had Max Levchin as an investor, so his experience and his brand name from PayPal is humongously valuable to us. We also took other people who are experts in fintech. We took people who create us the best network around the world. And then when we did our last fundraising, we were kind of continuing on the same basis. We thought about who are the investors who can support us grow, who can support the growth of the company going forward. We chose the best of them. We spoke to them, and then we had a really good fit with Peter and his team, and that's how the deal came together. And again, Peter's experience in building global companies is really invaluable.
I'm sure it helps when you go up against giants in the banking industry. Talk a bit more about how it is to be a startup in the fintech space. It's such an old industry with so many big players. How do you compete in the space?
So I think the biggest and unique challenge in fintech is trust. People are used to trusting banks with their money, and even though trust has in banks has also always been not their strongest side, but there's a little saying that people don't trust bank, but they trust their own bank. So if you look at the legacy of trust that banks have, then as a startup it's really hard to start competing with that. If the day we launched, we were a brand new company on the internet, so why the hell should anybody trust us with their money? We have people who are transferring hundreds of thousands or millions using TransferWise, so it is a little bit of a leap of faith at first. But now we've been out for a few years. We have a really good reputation. You can read about us online. You can look at our reviews on Trustpilot. So we built up lots of trust, but that will continue being one of the key themes. How do we make us a trusted partner with your money? I think that's the most unique thing about fintech. And the other important part is regulation. Given that we are in the financial industry, we are being governed by regulation. So we are licensed by the FCA in the UK, which gives us a license to operate throughout Europe. And but this means everywhere else we go, we have to look at regulation, and we're continuously being monitored by the FCA, by HMRC. We're fulfilling all the same rules and regulations about money laundering that a commercial bank does. So it adds a lot of things you have to do, which other startups don't. So, and this is something which is most important for us, because we cannot fail in any of these, because that would be the end of it very quickly.
So in this area, in the Nordics and the Baltics, we have seen several very interesting companies in the fintech space. We have iSettle and Klarna in Sweden, and Holvi in Finland, and TransferWise. And you also have a couple of copycats in the Baltics. How do you see this space developing here? Do we have potential to found more companies in the fintech space in this area?
So I think when it comes to fintechs, and Europe is where I think there's much more fintech activity when compared to US, which is great news. But I think unfortunately for the Scandinavian countries, I do think that London is a worldwide fintech capital. If you look at the concentration of fintech companies in London, I think it's the biggest compared to any other place in the world. And I think that's something which Europe really should be cheering and talking about, and putting more effort into it to make sure that Europe and London keeps on developing as a world center of excellence for fintech. But having said that, great companies come from everywhere. They come from Tallinn, they come from Helsinki, they come from Sweden. And I think Sweden is a particularly interesting example, because I haven't been to Sweden in a while, and I don't know about the kind of grassroots startup activities there. But if you look at the larger companies, Klarna, iSettle, Spotify, it's amazing. There is a number of real growth stage startups in Sweden. I don't know how that's happened. But I think it's really good for the region.
Looking forward, then, where do you see TransferWise in say 5 years? What's your ambitions for the future?
So we're looking at building a trusted brand for people to deal with their money. If we think about money transfer loans, and this is probably one of the biggest markets in the world. Our estimates are that the amount of money that consumers and small to medium businesses send is around 5 to 10 trillion on a yearly basis. So that's a humongous market, and there is today no company has a significant share of that. So we're looking forward to building a trusted partner for doing your money transfer on a global basis.
All right, Taavet, thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.